Hi, I'm David. In this Harris Academics video, we're going to cover the regulation of gastric activity. So just how does your stomach know when to churn and make acid versus relax? Well, we're going to break that answer down into 3 phases and 2 pathways. As an overview, phase 1 is the cephalic phase. During the cephalic phase, gastric activity is increased and it is mainly controlled by neural pathways. Phase 2 is known as the gastric phase. During the gastric phase, gastric activity is increased. It is mainly controlled by both the neural pathway and hormonal pathways. Phase 3 is the intestinal phase. Now, during the intestinal phase, gastric activity is actually suppressed. During the intestinal phase, it is mostly controlled by both neural and hormonal pathways. So what do I mean when I say neural pathways? Well, part of your unconscious nervous system is wired to your GI tract, that is the parasympathetic system, colloquially the rest and digest portion of your nervous system. Now, remember, the parasympathetic system is responsible for increasing gastric activity and decreasing cardiac activity, hence the rest and digest. One major nerve associated with the parasympathetic system is the vagus nerve. Now, the vagus nerve is responsible for carrying signals from the medulla oblongata to the GI tract. So let's apply this to our first phase. During the cephalic phase or head phase, stimuli from outside of the body like sights, smells, sounds stimulate the cerebral cortex. The cephalic reflex arc carries the signals through the hypothalamus, medulla oblongata, down the vagus nerve to the stomach. Now, this neural stimulation increases gastric motility and secretion, which is why bacon sizzling in the morning can make your stomach rumble before you've ever taken a bite. The neural pathway for phase 2 is just a little bit different. During the gastric or stomach phase, stretch receptors and chemoreceptors inside of the stomach detect food inside of the stomach. They send a signal along the gastric reflex arc, which arcs up to the medulla oblongata, back down the vagus nerve to its target, the stomach. This neural stimulation increases both gastric motility and gastric secretions. The neural pathway for phase 3 is the same as for phase 2, however, the outcome is different. During the intestinal phase, acid content is high and food has left the stomach entering into the intestines. Now, this leads to a decrease in stimulation of the stretch receptors and chemoreceptors of the stomach. So the intestinal reflex arc follows this decrease in stimulation up to the medulla oblongata, down the vagus nerve, and back to the stomach. And this decrease leads to a decrease in gastric activity. Now, let's talk hormonal control. Phase 2, the gastric phase, has one main hormone to know, gastrin. So, food entering into the stomach stimulates the release of gastrin into the bloodstream. It circulates, returns back to its target, the stomach, where gastrin stimulates the increase of gastric motility and the secretion of hydrochloric acid. Phase 3, the intestinal phase, includes 2 main hormones, cholecystokinin, abbreviated CCK, and secretin. So cholecystokinin is released from the duodenum in response to chyme entering into the small intestine. Now, cholecystokinin targets the stomach to decrease the amount of churning that occurs. Secretin is also secreted by the duodenum. It is also secreted in response to chyme entering into that first part of the small intestine and it targets the stomach to reduce secretions. And that about wraps us up. To recap, sights and smells get your stomach going during the cephalic phase. Neural stimulation, along with gastrin, keep your stomach going during the gastric phase. And then a reduction in that neural stimulation, along with enzymes secreted from your small intestine, reduce your stomach's activity in the intestinal phase. References for this video are from McKinley O'Loughlin's Anatomy and Physiology, 3rd edition. Music is by Harris Heller. Titles pack is by Modern Filmmaker. Sound design was made using assets created and provided by Andrew Huang. And a special thanks to Sophia Myers for the design and animation of Florence. Thank you so much for watching. Until next time, take care.